At least 12 people have been killed and more than 30 injured across Ukraine in another night of Russian drone and missile attacks. Explosions and anti-aircraft fire were heard across the capital, Kyiv. Russia also targeted Sumy in the east and Mykolaiv in the south. It's the second night of intense attacks. Meanwhile, the two sides are expected to continue handing over prisoners of war in a third exchange later on Sunday. So far, they've each released 697 prisoners. Both sides agreed to return 1,000 prisoners each during talks in Turkiye last week.
Sunday is the third stage. We are to free 1,000 of our people during these days, but the task is to bring home absolutely everyone who is currently held in Russia. And this is a joint task for our intelligence services, for our diplomats, for our entire state. Clearly, it's not an easy task, but it must be accomplished.
Well, John Hendren is joining us from the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. And what we're seeing, John, again, as we said, it's the second night of intense attacks across Ukraine, even on Kyiv. But this is part of the intensification of Russian attacks we've seen for about a month now.
That's right. Those attacks have been increasing in recent days on a nightly basis. What we saw was an acceleration over the previous overnight attacks. We had more than 270 drones and more than a dozen missiles. Well, overnight, we saw an even greater assault here in the capital of Kyiv and all across Ukraine. And those numbers keep changing. They're likely to go up. But what we have as of now are 13 people killed across Ukraine, 4 here in the Kyiv region, 3 children were killed in the Zhytomyr region, and 4 killed in Khmelnytsky, that's in western Ukraine. And we began to hear these air assaults before midnight, and they continued. The last air raid warning clearance that I saw was at 7 a.m. So this really continued throughout the night. And what you heard were loud booms here in the capital of Kyiv. And then you could see tracer fire, that's the anti-aircraft munition, going back to try to shoot down some of these projectiles. But this is an acceleration of the assaults. And that's happening as the Russians seek to move forward in eastern Ukraine and southern Ukraine. They've also been attacking Odessa in the south. So definitely an acceleration. And as this is happening, Ukrainian forces have accelerated their own attacks. There have been more than 200 airport closures this year in Russia itself because of the continued air assaults from Ukraine. So both sides are really stepping up their attacks, and they're very far apart from a ceasefire or any kind of peace agreement.
Yeah, and that's despite the talks that took place in Turkey last week and the agreement to exchange 1,000 prisoners each, which is the largest prisoner exchange of this 3-year war, John.
That's right. That's the one positive development that has been occurring in the last couple of days. This would be day 3 of the prisoner exchanges. We've got 697 prisoners from each side who have been exchanged here in Ukraine. That has included 120 civilians and then a number of people from the National Guard, the Border Patrol, and the armed forces. So we should have about 300 and change left to go on both sides. And when those troops come here into Ukraine, they're coming off buses. They're wrapped in those blue and yellow Ukrainian flags. And that marks a massive victory in this country where some of those people have been gone for years.
All right, that is John Hendren with the latest, joining us live from the Ukrainian capital. Thank you very much, John. Vyacheslav Matuzov is a political analyst and a former Russian diplomat, and he's joining us live from the Russian capital. Thank you for your time as always, Mr. Matuzov. We appreciate it. It's clear the two sides are negotiating under continuing fire. How do you assess the current outlook for the war, and if anything has changed since the talks in Turkey last week?
Yes, every day we watch some changes in the front line because Russian military forces are on offensive. That's every day we were informed about the moving Russian troops to the west every day. Even when they achieved 150 meters, not kilometers, meters, they informed us. Information is very good nowadays in Moscow. So I think that the main problem for Ukraine military forces is that lack of military equipment, because Russia proved very surely that their economy, that their industry produced quite a lot of equipment and military all things in the battlefield. So I think that for Western countries who are supporting Ukraine forces, they don't have such kind of opportunity, and especially if they take into consideration that agreement and negotiations is going on. And
but Mr.
So I think
Matuzov, sorry to interrupt you, but
party,
are there negotiations? Do you know of any negotiations that are taking place at the moment?
well, negotiation doesn't continuing all the time, on my opinion, in Istanbul, in Riyadh and Doha, in every place they had. So I don't think that contacts with the United States, who is the main partner of negotiation for Russia, because not Ukraine. Russia doesn't look at Ukraine as a main partner in all negotiations process.
And the last week, the talks that took place in Turkiye last week were at President Donald Trump's insistence. Today is the final day of the prisoner exchange that was agreed last week. Do you think that that agreement has given the sides anything to build on?
Well, agreement for exchange that is one thing, and the battlefield is another thing. I think that we have information that today the second group of prisoners were changed. They said 307 for the second group. So we wait from Russian side. There is no objection, and the exchange is continuing. Russia support this exchange, and as agreed, 1,000 for 1,000. And I think that everything from Russian side, there are no problems for exchange.
And what is the mood in terms of the war in Russia beyond this exchange? You were talking about how Russia is on the offensive. It's true that it is on the offensive in many areas, but it's not gaining as much ground as it was during the start of the war. Is there a sense at all that the conflict is dragging on indefinitely there?
Well, it is very difficult to read military plans, military strategy, what direction will be offensive in the Sumy, Kyiv, Kharkiv, Dnipro, or Mykolaiv. Today we heard that Mykolaiv, it is a Black Sea port, very important, and that were destroyed all ships that were bringing to Ukraine some military equipment, and they will be destroyed fully by the fleet. And the strike on Kyiv was very unusual, because it was destroyed, as we said. We heard that we destroyed Antonov plant, air plant. Antonov, it is a huge Soviet-made aviation plant that produced giant civil airplanes like Antonov 1-4 and Antonov 12 and Antonov 24.
All right.
All this strike was oriented on this plant. I think it was destroyed during the last 2 days.
Vyacheslav Matuzov, I'm afraid we've run out of time, but thank you for your perspective. As always, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.